Hello. So we're going to talk about transitions in this show. Learning how and why to add live transitions will help your live streams, just like across the board. It is going to bring so much more value to your live streams, and I'm going to explain why in a minute. The other part of it is that it's a really good way to communicate and help to keep your audience's attention and focus. So the important thing right in this second before we completely dive in is that transitions are not just for recorded video anymore. I don't know if they ever were, but we're going to get into all the ins and outs of that in just a second. But first, we have to start this party in the official way. So here we go. All right, so let us dive right into this because this is a big topic. We're going to discuss how transitions in your live videos is going to enhance your videos, enhance your content, and help your audience stay focused. And these are all not so easy things, right? But before we get too far into it, let's just talk about basics so we're all starting off from the same point, and that is, what the heck am I talking about, right? What are transitions in video? You actually know what they are because you're used to seeing them, okay? But just to put some context around it, they're just a visual effect, okay? And they are used basically as a scene is changing, or if a point of view is changing, or if a topic is changing in a video. And actually, you just saw some, right? I've been using these all along. If you've been watching my videos, I have been using these from the start. So something like this, right? So when I bring in the URL, that is a lower third with a transition, right? That's sliding in action is a transition, and when it goes out like that, that's a transition. So that's the kind of thing we're talking about. Just like when we went into the intro video and when we came out of the video, those are also transitions. They can be very simple, they can be very straightforward, or you can do a little more complex ones. You do want to be a little careful with that, so we'll cover that in a second, but you don't want to get too carried away with your transitions. You don't want it to feel too amusement park-like. Let's go with that. But you do want them to be professional. You want them to be there, right? Because they are a very valuable tool for us as creators of videos, because they help focus, they help move things along, and they also come with their own embedded meanings, which you don't have to train your audience on, because you know what? Since television and films began, these devices have been used. And so we have just over time learned what they're supposed to mean, learned what to expect from them, and frankly, we've learned to expect them, right? So that is one of the big things about this, is when you add this type of effect to your live videos or your recorded videos. I mean, we're focusing on live tonight because that's where a lot of people are not using them. Most people do take the time when they do edited videos to work in a transition or two, but most people are not doing them in their live videos, and they're missing out. Right? This is a problem because this is technology that exists. It's a possibility that exists, but if you're not using it in your live videos, you're not capitalizing on it. And you want to make the most out of your videos, right? You want your videos to come across with a certain feel to them, a certain level of professionalism, certain amount of polish. And that is how you're going to do that, is by making use of these kinds of tools. You want to be careful about the ones that you use, right? So let me just get myself set up here so I can do some examples. So certain ones have very specific meanings, right? So for example, and hopefully this won't turn us off, but if you do something like this, okay, that's a fade to black, right? And that usually indicates to people that something is ending. So you don't want to necessarily use that if you're not ending. Now, I may have just lost a whole bunch of people because I did that. But my point is, like, they have certain meanings. There are very, simple ones. Let me just get this queued up here. So, like, if I do this switch to this, right, that's a very simple cut. It goes from one back to me, right? And it's very short. It's very to the point, right? Just boom and boom. And that's all there is to it. But you can also do things that are a little bit more enhanced. So for example, if I do this one, right, there's more stuff going on. I don't know why that's moved in the wrong position, but regardless, that doesn't matter as much. The point is, like, you saw how it all kind of just, it moved, it resized, it adjusted incorrectly. But that is a higher level advanced advanced. Yeah, I guess we'll call it advanced. It's an advanced type of transition, but it isn't hard to do, and it doesn't cost anything, which is lovely. It's just a little something extra that you can provide in your videos. Just give me a second. I have to fix that because we're going to be using this a lot. So let me fix this window here. Not that one. Alrighty. This one. I'm in the middle of, so just for explanation here, I'm in the middle of redesigning my studio, and so things are in kind of pieces at the moment. But hey, that's all part of the fun. This is what we're doing here, right? This is about explaining how to do things and show what not to do, warts and all. Okay, so that'll work out better now. Okay. So let me just do that again. So the difference between just, you know, a hard cut like that or a more transitioned type thing, right? Where my video started big and then it shifted over and landed on top of my, my transcribe. So that is one way to do this. Let's go back. Now, just for the heck of it, we're going to just do some merges back and forth just so you can see. So we'll do merge first, right? So that was the merge. That's the one we did. You can do things like that, right? Where it kind of slides in. That's not too bad, but it's something that you don't want to use a lot because that is a pretty jarring transition, right? So it's the difference between a transition that takes somebody's focus, right, and puts their attention where you want it to be, as opposed to a transition that makes them go, hey, wait, how'd they do that? Which takes them completely out of the information you're trying to communicate. Now, for this particular show, doing these sort of offbeat transitions is okay because I'm showing you the different options that you've got. But you do want to make very careful, focused choices about the ones that you're going to do. So we'll have some more fun here. We'll just go through a few more. Okay, so actually we can just keep going back and forth between these two. Well, here. So as an example, okay. So I'm being a killjoy, right? I'm saying, you know, don't use the fun ones. I'm not really saying that, right? Because I use the fun ones, but I use the fun ones on purpose. So let me see if I can get my model in place. Murphy, sweetie, treats. Go get your treats. Okay. So when I transition to Murphy, I do go ahead and do a fun one, right? And I'll do that again because it is fun, right? I'm giving you a little peek at Murphy. I, you know, got him over there with the treats. So it's okay that I did something that was a little bit more jarring, a little bit more dramatic, because I did that for a reason, right? I did that because this particular transition is supposed to be fun. Okay, this particular transition, I do want to, right? We're taking a little break. We're having a little fun. You're checking out Murphy. You're seeing how he plays with his favorite treat. That's just don't freak. I know a lot of people are anti-rawhide, but he does not chew on the rawhide. He chews on the treat I put in the rawhide. It's a braid, so it's got some nice spacing in it. So that's what we're talking about on that type of thing. Okay, we're going to stop watching Murphy because he can be very distracting. All right, so let's go back and forth now to my example again. Here, we'll bring my desktop up. Okay, so now we got this and we got that. So let's just do a couple more. So, you know, there we did the merge. You can do a zoom. Again, a little jarring, but it can have its place. We can do a wipe, which is kind of like the slide, but not, right? Because with the slide, the whole thing moves. With the wipe, it's just literally like you're moving something that reveals what's underneath it. Did we do the fly? Let's see, did we do the fly? Yeah, we did the fly. We can do a cross zoom. Okay, so we'll do that again. So you see what's happening there? It's zooming and there's action at the same time, right? So it's actually transitioning, merging almost from one to the other while it's also zooming in. So again, it's a little circusy, but in the right situation, it might be okay. Here's another one that a lot of people like. This one gets overused a lot, so please, you know, it's like spices, right? You want to just add enough spice to enhance, but not so much to overwhelm. So there's that. Now, there are times when, like, you know, if you're doing like slides or whatever, that might actually be a good way to go, but you just want to be careful about it. What else we got here? We won't necessarily go through all of them, but then there are like combinations with it, right? So that was just the cube. Now we're going to do the cube with a zoom. Okay, so that one pulled you away as it was turning to bring the other one up. So we'll do that again. So you see that little flip there? That's what that one's doing for you. All right, here we'll just play with a couple more. So then you've got like a vertical wipe. You got horizontal wipes. These are all doing the same type of thing, just in different directions. They can go in different, yeah, they can absolutely do in different directions. And then there's things called like the stingers. Now with the stingers, there wasn't a whole lot of change there, because what you usually do with a stinger is you add some sort of sound or sound effect. Again, used properly, right? Used gently, it can be a really nice effect, but you do want to keep it in control. So for the most part, what I use are cuts, right? Which are pretty straightforward. But I also tend to like the flies. Nope, I'm sorry, that's not the one I use a lot. What's the one I use a lot? The wipe, yeah. Because it's implying something, but it's also a little eye-catching. So you just want to make really good choices about it. But let's talk about now why you're going to do these kinds of things, right? So here we go, right? So I'm bringing one in. It lets you know that this transition came in, right? And it's there for you to read it as I'm talking to you about it. But, you know, eventually it's just going to go away on its own. And as you start to watch the show on a more regular basis, which I hope you do, and I hope that you will follow and like and spread the word. But as you start to do that and you get used to the way that I do my shows, how I do my streams, you'll subconsciously know that when you see that kind of action down the bottom, that I'm going to be sharing some information with you that is somehow tied to the show, sometimes more directly to the content, sometimes just to the show in general. So like for this example, this is tied to the show in general. But when I do something like this, that's tied specifically to this topic, right? So we're talking about transitions, and I transitioned in a lower third that had that information. By the way, if you're not sure what a lower third is, I did a show about that a couple of weeks ago. The card will show up, and I'll make sure the link goes into the description, okay? Okay, so why would you want to do this? So we talked about in the beginning, like the initial reason to do this, right? It is because you want to focus your audience's attention on something that you're doing, right? So if I'm going to switch over and if I'm going to go to my slides, which I'm not using this time, but this is how you're used to seeing me switch over to slide decks, right? When I'm going to provide some visual information here. Sometimes I'll do this type of thing also if I'm going to do a screen share, right? If I'm demoing a product, I will very often do something like this. And all of the things we talked about will work on here, right? So I can do this just as a cut. I can do this as a wipe, right? I can fly rotate it if I really, really want to. The point is, it doesn't matter how you've got your screen set up here, like however it is that I am talking to you and showing you things. All of these transitions will still apply. They'll just have a slightly different feel to it depending on the number of elements that you have on there and how you set them up to do this. So the other reasons why you're going to want to do this is because we have been trained over the many years of film and TV to see these types of effects as professional, right? As a skilled type of thing, right? This is the difference between, you know, somebody who's just got a webcam or, a phone, right? And is doing videos. Not that there's anything wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But when you're at the point with your streams, right? And basically I'm talking to a business audience here, right? A small business, solos, entrepreneurs. When we are ready to start using this type of communication with our audience, we kind of want to up our game a little bit, right? It's fine to hang out, and to have fun on streams, play games or whatever. But when you are starting to try to target content to an audience, when you're starting to try to provide value to that audience on a very specific level, you're going to be automatically putting more effort in, and you're going to want that amount of effort to come through. So that's where these little elements that you start to add will start to add that level of professionalism to everything that you're doing. And as you're doing that, it also implies that you are professional, right? That level of polish makes you look more professional. It also implies a level of skill, right? Which also then translates into a level of expertise, right? So just by adding these little elements, right, it starts to add to the value, add to the weight and authority of what you're saying because of how you're saying it, right? It adds a little more value to the content that you're providing, because by the very fact that you are adding these elements and you are presenting your material in this way, people are going to perceive it as more. They're going to perceive you as an authority, as an expert, as somebody who has something to say that they probably want to listen to. And isn't that the point, right? That's why we're doing this. That's why you plan your shows. That's why you come up with a show flow. That's why you come up with your branding and the theme and the content for your shows, is because you have an expertise that you're looking to share. And very often, there may be, goods or services tied to that. But the focus of our live streams is more about just providing that focus, letting people know that we exist, right? And that we have the products and services available, and that we can be reached out to if somebody needs help. And that is the next level of this. You can't really do this just from your phone at this point. There are some minor hacks available, but just as a general statement, you can't. The way that I do this is through a tool, through a streaming software tool. So in my case, I'm using vMix, but you can also do this using stuff like Ecamm and OBS and those types of things. Now, if you are doing a one-person show, right, one-man band here, it is a little hard to do this kind of stuff all by yourself. There's a certain amount of dancing going on here that does make it a bit of a challenge, especially on nights like tonight where it looks like some things have not gone out as we would have liked. That's okay. That's why we do a recording too. But that is why I do remote producing for people, because this does get to be a lot. As you start to lay these levels onto your productions, not everybody's comfortable doing it themselves anymore. So that is why I do remote production. And what that means is, and it doesn't have to be me, there's other people who do this, but you can hire somebody to run your show for you so you can focus on your content and your audience. So that means, somebody who would do the transitions that you're, bringing up. And, making sure that, things like this are working, or bringing up a QR code, at a point where maybe you're talking about a product or a service or a launch that you're doing. Right, there's my QR code right there. Or, as you're transitioning from maybe, doing an intro, and, maybe you're going to then, present product or do a store walkthrough or do slide decks or whatever. You could have somebody else managing all of this kind of stuff while hitting all these buttons that I'm hitting. And here, I'll show you how I'm doing this. If you do want to do it yourself, I highly recommend you get yourself something like this. This is X Keys. So every one of these buttons here, I program to start and stop the show, to do the transitions, all that kind of good stuff. There's other products out there. I happen to love this one because it just works for my brain really well. But there's also something called Stream Deck that a lot of people like too. Whatever you decide to use, these are the kind of tools that you can put to use for you to make these kinds of transitions a little bit easier for you, because once you build them, then you just hit the button and you're good to go. But if you want help, if you need help, there are people who can do remote producing. You don't have to be in the same location. You don't have to be in the same town. You don't have to be in the same time zone. And somebody can do this stuff for you remote. So it's just a matter of how you want to do it. But the point that I'm trying to make tonight is that you do want to think about doing it because of the added value it brings, right? The professionalism, the polish, right? The level of skill and expertise that it communicates to your audience. And the fact that just by adding these little touches, you come across as more of an authority, which will then garner people's attention. And that way you can share your content and your message. And that's really what you're spending your time doing this for, right? Okay, so that is what I have for you. If you have any questions or comments, do feel free to reach out. You can just go to yourtechcoach.net. There's a contact form there. If you have questions, if you have a show topic you want me to cover, feel free to go ahead and hit me up there. If you prefer to use Twitter, on Twitter I am your_tech coach. So you can DM me or at me, and I'm more than happy to answer your questions. All I ask is, if you have a question that you need a fast answer on, let me know that in the message. Otherwise, I'll assume that it's okay to save it for a future show, like this one. This is actually this show, and the one I did, was it last week or the week before, about the captioning? The last two shows came directly from people asking me questions about how to do this kind of stuff. So feel free to ask these questions, because that's where the best shows come from. All right, everybody, I look forward to seeing your transitions out there, And I hope that you will join me again next week. I do the show every Thursday at 8 p.m. on Facebook, on Mixer, and on YouTube. And if there's ever a glitch, and that does happen, never worry, because I always do a recording, which I then upload. So one way or another, I will get this content to you. I hope you're having a really good day, and I will see you soon. Bye.